I did some slight tinkering with Aquis with mouse controls, and it feels similar to Arwing with mouse, which also has some issues. Because when you move your mouse to the edges of the screen, it makes your vehicle go in that direction. This isn't that bad of an issue with the Landmaster because you only have to worry about the X-axis, but with the Arwing and Blue Marine, you also have to worry about the Y-axis. I feel like, at least personally, I'm not seeing a compelling reason to switch to mouse control for Arwing or Blue Marine as of right now. Yeah, so in response to that video, I got a couple comments suggesting that there absolutely is a way to fix just about every problem I was having with mouse controls. But it involves something very sneaky, because normal mouse mode will always have the limitations of first-person view, as well as your cursor that drags your vehicle in its direction. Among the comments I got was a video made by the user Pina Serafina. So let's check out some of that real quick.
By holding your Joy-Con 2 controller like a mouse, you can seamlessly swap to mouse-controlled targeting for intuitive aiming and steering.
Everybody, stay alert! Fox, no!
By sharing one of the Joy-Con 2 controllers with a second player, you can split pilot and gunner duties in co-op.
Wait a minute!
That's right, you can circumvent the co-op restrictions by completely remapping the left Joy-Con system-wide to flip the orientation back to how it was in regular mouse mode. I know I'm super late to this party since this video was made back when the game launched, but I gotta say, this is one of the reasons I love accessibility options. With this, we can take something that was theoretically possible to do if you were fully committed to actually playing with a sideways Joy-Con into something actually fun and enjoyable. And if you don't want to mess with mouse mode or you just can't for whatever reason, you still have plenty of controller options. This transforms my impression of mouse mode considerably, because now we do have the ability to play in third person and detach our cursor from the direction our vehicle's facing. Within reason anyways, but we'll get into that in a little bit. I've been messing with this control scheme for the last couple days, and here's what I found.
It's doing better than we expected, Slim.
Hey, I had dibs!
Hold still and let me shoot you!
I'd like to go over each of the different gameplay modes real quick, because each one is impacted differently from this alternate approach to mouse control. From the last video I posted that covered mouse controls, I said that Landmaster is better for high scores with mouse over controller, and that's even more true than ever before with this new control scheme adjustment. We now have more control over the vehicle without the mouse cursor dragging us to any side of the screen. Aiming finally doesn't feel like a tug of war between the cursor and your control stick, which is fantastic. Titania and Macbeth have the most upside for switching to mouse mode in terms of high score, and I'd recommend it to anyone who can tolerate adapting to this. In addition to the Landmaster, I'm now of the opinion that the Blue Marine is strictly better in mouse mode now that your cursor is separated from your ship. This mainly allows you to do vertical bombing runs over the pillar points, which lets you squeeze out a couple of extra points otherwise not possible in the normal control scheme. You can also unlock your torpedoes still, so there's no disadvantage with this control scheme here. I really didn't like this stage initially in the new game. The barrel roll being changed so that your ship careens to the side felt really bad to me because there's situations in Aquis where your best option to defend yourself against laser fire is to roll. However, if you want to aim and roll in the new Aquis, your sub starts tossing itself to the side haphazardly, making it very chaotic to keep your shots steady. Now, with this new co-op change, my cursor stays in the same spot, making my aim completely fixed and precise. I can also just move my ship out of the way while aiming where I want to with ease, which wasn't possible before in this new iteration of Aquis. I'm kind of surprised by this, but modified mouse mode honestly fixes almost everything I had issues with in this stage. If you can tolerate mouse controls, I highly suggest checking them out here. As far as Arwing on rails and Arwing all range mode, I'm gonna say that it is theoretically optimal to play these stages with the mouse scheme too. But there are a couple of caveats with Arwing that need to be discussed. First off, the issue I'm having is that you have to get used to the range of the cursor, because it can't just aim on the far right of the screen if you're on the far left. You also have to adjust your aim for any steep angle you're at, which isn't immediately intuitive to get used to if you're already used to how aiming is normally with a controller. It doesn't seem to come up for Landmaster and Blue Marine as much, possibly because the enemies tend to be larger in those stages. You also tend to shoot the floor more often, whereas in the Arwing, that opportunity isn't always available. You also have to be more precise with the shots in the Arwing because the charge radius is much smaller than it is with the other two vehicles. It's also impossible to do the unlocking input for charge shots in the Arwing. For anyone unfamiliar, if you hold the two shoulder buttons, your charges will not lock onto any enemies while the two buttons are held down. This is great for indirect charge shots to maximize your score. The absence of this tool for the Arwing doesn't necessarily make it impossible though, because you are still able to fire your charges before they lock on. It's a bit harder, and you do have to be a lot more careful about what you hover your cursor over and when you start charging your laser. I find this tends to be harder to deal with in the all-range mode stages due to the chaotic nature of the enemies flying around randomly, as opposed to the deterministic nature of the enemies in the on-rail stages. For most of these stages, it can be trickier to land perfectly placed unlock shots, but for Katina in particular, it seems like less of an issue with mouse because the current high scoring strategy is to maximize lock-on shots anyway. These problems apply to these stages with a normal controller too, but I personally found them to be a bit more tricky to balance alongside mouse controls in particular, but your mileage may vary. I think if you can master all of these issues with using the mouse and the Arwing, then it too will also be better with mouse controls. At least in theory. This is one of those things where I'd have to see it overtake some of the current record scores for it to be locked in as definitive. I'm excited to see someone actually take up that challenge though, because it'd be super interesting to see what an expert mouse user could do to this game if they cared enough to optimize high score. So that's about all I've got for you today. Hopefully you found this interesting, or maybe you've been compelled to give Remapped mouse mode a shot. And as always, thanks for watching.